Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Imagine Live from Ericsson, where we take a close look at the future of limitless connectivity and invite you to share your thoughts live. Whatever part of the tech world interests you, we can be in no doubt that cyberspace is the next industrial revolution and that future is going to be shaped by enterprises. Clearly, limitless connectivity is already a given in that revolution, and the more limits that we remove, the more exciting the transformation. So what we need to do now is understand who is developing the key innovations and where the greatest opportunities lie. Let us take a look at some of the areas where Ericsson and its partners are having the greatest impact. And to help me do that, I would like to welcome two industry experts. Today, I am joined by Dennis Wong, who is the Vice President of Enterprise 5G and Platforms at Singtel. Dennis, it's nice to see you. How are you today?
I'm great. Hi, Alex. I'm really good. Very happy to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. And joining you is Ludwig Langren, who is the Vice President of Digital Services in Southeast Asia, India, and Oceania at Ericsson. I am delighted to see you as well, Ludwig, though today you're not in Singapore. You are at home in Sweden.
I'm in Sweden. The beauty of remote working. Super excited to be here and excited because we're going to imagine possible today.
We absolutely are. Thank goodness for limitless connectivity. You can be clear across the world, enjoying the midnight sun. So this is how today is going to work. I'm going to get the opportunity to ask our esteemed guests all kinds of questions about the future, about the present, and about collaboration. But I'm not the expert here. This is why we have our experts joining us. Also, our audience is the expert. I'm absolutely positive that you're going to have all kinds of questions to our guests, to Dennis and to Ludwig. So please do get in touch on Twitter, LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Already we have people coming in from Singapore, from Croatia, from Mexico City, and from Kenya. We want to hear from all of you. Do let us know, and I'll bring in those questions throughout. But to kick off, Dennis, we are obviously delighted to have you here in person, but thank goodness for the multi-platform and multimedia world, we also have a video from you setting the scene with a brief tour around the work that Singtel has been doing in collaboration with Ericsson.
Limitless connectivity is the most important component for enabling enterprise of the future. It plays a critical role in underpinning a platform of integrating technology, data, and innovation. Singapore is a global hub for commerce, industries, and logistics. We see 5G and future connectivities propelling digital transformation for enterprises, from advanced manufacturing to smart transport, logistics, and healthcare. Combined with edge cloud and technology platforms, this will lead to more innovation. We have gone beyond being a provider of connectivities. We see ourselves as a business service orchestrator, delivering software-defined networks and platforms for seamless service deployment, supporting how enterprise can use autonomous production, how digital twins environment can be evolved into a complete mirror worlds. We have been growing with Singapore for the last 140 years, and we have operated with Ericsson here with over 30 years. Together, we have innovated and introduced new technologies such as the first 5G network in the region. This is indeed groundbreaking. However, it's not the past that defines us, it's our future.
Well, thank you, Dennis. That is food for thought. Lots of big words in there. I'm intrigued by the things that you mentioned, like edge cloud and, of course, autonomous production, digital twinning, creating a mirror world. All of these things sound very futuristic. And tell me a little bit about, are they really situated in the now? Talk to me about where we are right now.
So maybe, thanks, Alex. I think, as I watch the video and I talk about the word limitless, kind of connectivities, it just happens to bring me back to about, 25, 26 years ago. I was just thinking that as a young engineer, I was on board a, Navy frigate. I was going onto what I call a lighthouse. And I was actually trying to repair a microwave link. And at that time, the link for the microwave was only 2 Mbps. And today, 25 years later, we are looking at something that's what we call 2 GB, 5 GB kind of speed. So I think that, we have indeed come a long way. So while we look at the, kind of big words like, as you say, edge cloud, we're talking about autonomous production, etc. I believe all these are actually, I would say that closer and sooner than we think that it will be. So I'm really intrigued, and I believe that the future is here and the future is now, and it is just up to us to explore it, especially if we have the limitless connectivities. It's really, the potential is there for us to explore.
It is an extraordinary shift
Yeah.
in what feels like such a short amount of time. I also remember the early internet, and that transition was, it felt like we were sprinting through the universe even 25 years ago. Already, enterprise was taking advantage of this type of connectivity, even though it wasn't quite as limitless as it is now. But now I'd love, Ludwig, to hear from you about where you think that we've come from. What are some of the givens of limitless connectivity and how that works with enterprise? Because, enterprises have succeeded and they've failed. So what are some of those lessons that we've learned so that we can now move forward into the future?
Well, the word that comes to mind is ecosystem. That is really what we need to enable. But let's look a little bit at where we are. So 2022 is a milestone moment. Why is that? Because in 2022 we're going to pass 1 billion connections for 5G. You might have seen the Ericsson mobility report is out and has lots of interesting data, and one of them is this milestone moment that we have in 2022 that we'll have 1 billion connections on 5G in 2022. That's massive. It's the fastest moving technology on the planet in terms of the different Gs. And the exciting thing is that we're on the cusp of liberating industries. This is what it's all about. And to do that, we need to build ecosystems. You use this fantastic technology to enable these ecosystems. That's the cusp of where we are now. We could
I love that
compare
idea
it
of
with
ecosystems. Yeah.
no, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, do you have any sort of good examples of those ecosystems? What needs to be part of that ecosystem in order to have a successful enterprise in today's world?
Well, let's compare it a bit. Let's compare it with the journey that was between 3G to 4G when we enabled mobile broadband in a huge way. We had device vendors that came out with fantastic devices that we all love, and that was really what enabled the ecosystem for mobile broadband to become as popular as it is today. So let's think about enterprise. That's a more complex shift. So the first step is to have the technology that enables this. So that's obviously with 5G, the ultra low latency, the reliability that you have in the network, the possibility to slice it in multiple ways and to do that on the fly. So the technology is there and it's ready. Now we need the ecosystem to adapt all of that. And that is really the big step. And what we see is that industries are starting to enable this quite rapidly. And it's going across multiple sectors. So with this technology, you look at automotive industry, they're moving from having people working in the automotive to have robots, and these robots are now no longer connected with cables or Wi-Fi. They're now 5G connected, because then you can remodel the workplace in a much bigger way, and you don't have to care about whether the autonomous vehicles are inside or outside. You have a seamless connectivity, and you can give them the reliability that is needed for this type of precision industry. That's one ecosystem that's really taking off. Another one is around mining, where we're taking people out of the mines and having complete autonomous vehicles in such a large and quite complex industry like mining. And then, of course, public safety and rail, everything is getting connected. And it is about getting enough of this type of connectivity to really digitalize the industry.
It's exciting because it isn't just in certain parts of the world. I mean, just even looking at the people that we have logging in today, we've got people literally from all over the world who are interested in figuring out how best that they can help to serve enterprise as we are moving forward. And Dennis, like, we know one of the reasons, one of the drivers for this is the fact that the digital economy is extremely robust. How is connected enterprise helping to shape this economy, this digital economy?
Yeah, if I were to look at this, right, the 5G as well as the future connectivity technology is definitely going to change the way we work, we play, and the way we live. So it's just a very simple example for all of us, right? I just wanted to also to debunk one particular kind of like myth that I have, that people always think that is a 4G just a better is 5G just a better 4G? I think I really like to address that. If everyone think that 5G is just a better version of 4G, and everyone thinks that the improvement that 5G bring is just an incremental incremental of 4G, then we are getting it wrong. I know as what Louis has mentioned earlier, right? It's about creating new capabilities, is using the low latency, creating the new way of doing things, looking at things differently. It is supposed to be a paradigm shift. So if you look at the way I look at it, 5G, limited connectivities, the edge cloud and things, they bring about a paradigm shift in the way we do business. It's create a lot more innovation. I believe it goes beyond productivity. It creates new job, new way of doing things, and importantly, it creates a new economy. And it all this actually for the betterment of our social life as well as for the people itself. I think this is something that we really need to understand and need to really believe that this is the way that 5G should do. 5G bring about a total new change in the way we do things. So I think that's where I think my thoughts are.
I think this is a branding issue, really, isn't it? It needs to not just be called 5G. It needs to be called like Super G or something bigger so that people recognize that it isn't just an incremental advance, as you said. Ludwig, do you have any examples of this? I mean, Dennis is provocative. That's why we love speaking with him. But a lot of these ideas are they're sort of out there. Like, how can we bring it in and say, okay, it's not just the incremental. This is something that is a total gear change. What's coming out of Ericsson that feels like that gear change?
I mean, take a simple example. Take the call that we're on now. We're doing this webcast as natural as anything, and the pandemic has really taught us new ways of working, which we just didn't do before. I mean, Dennis is my customer, and normally I would always have physical meetings with my customer. It would not be accepted in other way. I'd need to get into a car or into a plane and meet. And now the most natural thing is to check up a video call and meet this way. And that not only creates it very efficient, but it also enables the world to become a more beautiful place, but by not needing to travel in the same way. And from an efficiency point of view, it's really massive, because what we've also seen, taking from our own industry in terms of deployments, is that the amount of people that we need to send on site is just much less. We've noticed over the pandemic years that we can do deployments with practically nobody on site and do all of the configuration and such remotely, and that saves a lot of money, and hopefully that also translates into better prices for all of us to use the connectivity in a better way. And it's sort of it's almost strange that it took a pandemic for us to allow for us to understand that, because as soon as it happened, we started to move into remote working. It was as natural as anything. It wasn't a big step. I don't think any of us felt that wow, it's so difficult to work from home. In fact, we're feeling that it's the most natural thing. And in fact, I think all companies are now struggling to get people back, right? So how could we have not imagined that before? To me, it really baffles. So
go ahead.
Dennis, I'm not sure
It's really a case of it's really a case of it. You never try, you never know it. I was just
Absolutely.
talking to some people about that. About in the past when we watch a TV show on the SD standard definition, we are quite used to it. Then after that, we walk through the kind of like walk through down the street and we show the showcase, and then we saw a 1080p TV. We say, oh wow, it's very clear. It's really look nice. Probably I don't need it. Then after that, you see Samsung 4K TV. You say, wow, it looks super, but I don't need it. But after a while, you realize that all the TVs are 1080p. And today, few days back, I went to visit my parent, and they have an old SD TV there, and I look at the TV and say, oh wow, it looks so bad. It's a case of we really don't feel it until we try it. After we try it, we can't go back. I think which is quite a similar experience in all of us, right? For developed countries, or for some of us, like it's a newer problem, right? That we say that, hey, how come when I load the web page, it's like it taking 3 seconds, you have a spinning wheel. Something is wrong with the Wi-Fi. Something is wrong with the network. We never knew that in the past 5 years ago, this is a norm. It's a norm, right? So I think we are just so used to getting it. And I think that in terms of the digital enterprise, it's the same. Today, if you can do things in a very fast, productive way, you won't want to go back. And if you try it, you want to adopt it, which I think a very good example in Singapore. So I think, in Singapore, the government actually set up a test bed in one of the islands, whereby we have 5G, we have the MECs, we have all the capabilities inside there. And we have invited all the agencies to try new solution. And that's how we actually found that after they try it, they realize that it's beneficial and it's actually improving the productivity. It created new business innovation, and then we see that the industry or even enterprise start adopting the new technology, because they found that once I use it, I can't undo it. Or even sometimes we say things that if I see it, I can't unsee it. So I think it is really a case that we try to make sure that we understand the technology, how it brings, but the ability to let people try it, the ability to have test bed, the ability to have ideation, the abilities to let people have what we call a sandbox to try things out is very important. And this ability for people to try things will actually accelerate the adoption, and that actually brings about what we call a change in the paradigm in the way we do things. I think is important. So while we talk about all this thing, we actually bring a lot of ecosystem partners, like as what Louis said. Ecosystem is extremely important. We bring them onto the test bed. We bring them onto the whole sandbox and say that, hey, let's create things together. It's no longer just the operator. It's no longer just Ericsson, the vendor, but it's actually the whole ecosystem, and the enablement agencies like the government just bring everything together. And that's where we believe is going to help us to have a quantum leap into the adoption and of a technology itself.
So I have a question here, actually. I'm going to jump in here. Sorry, Ludwig. I just need to jump in because we actually have an important clarification question from one of our viewers. Jaspel Singh on LinkedIn says that as the number of industrial devices on the planet is going to be greater than the number of humans, for limitless connectivity, and this is the exciting thing that we're talking about right now, these promises that we are talking about right now. Do you see a dedicated network for IoT devices, for example, or will limitless connectivity be on a single network?
It will
You want to take the question?
Yeah, I think, why don't we're going to throw that initially over to you, Ludwig.
Well, it will be both. The world always wants to find not one solution for things; it wants to find multiple solutions for things. I think that's how the world works. And dedicated networks, absolutely. For industries that want to protect some of their data, for industries that are bigger enough to cater for a bit of their own network, they will want to have a dedicated network, and we can see that across many verticals. Then one network for everything. Well, now with 5G, the possibility is to slice it, so we can create hybrid versions of that network. So leverage the operator infrastructure and then slice it in multiple ways, and create a virtual dedicated slice for that enterprise. So it will be both.
I wanted to jump in again. I'm sorry, Dennis. I think that this is actually Jasper's question was really important to hear the answer to. But I also want to move forward because this is something that's on the horizon at the moment. Is how we are going to deal with the connectivity, with this limitless connectivity, and specifically in this example, the IoT devices. But part of this is this ecosystem that Ludwig was talking about. And essential to that is represented by the fact that both of you are here today. You are great collaborators. Dennis, can you tell me a little bit about the role of collaboration and cooperation in the new ecosystem as we look forward to these new horizons that we are going to be traversing?
Yeah, if you look at it, right, in Singtel, we have been operating for about 140 years. And like I say in my video, right, for the last 30 years, we have been working very closely with Ericsson. Excuse me. We've been working, excuse me.
This is why it's always good to have a glass of water right next to your computer when you're doing
That's
things.
right. Yeah.
Are you okay, Dennis? You all right? You okay?
Probably a few seconds.
Okay. Ludwig, let me jump over to you, and then we'll come back to Dennis on this. Clear yourself, make yourself comfortable there, Dennis. Ludwig,
Yeah,
the role of
I was just going to mention earlier that the world is digitizing, and it's technology people like us, we feel that it's never moving fast enough, but it really is. I mean, think about your daily life. Like when was the last time that you visited a bank? When was the last time that you visited a travel agency? I'm not talking about a website, an actual travel agency, and talk to them about the travel that this doesn't happen anymore, right? So the world is really digitizing. The difference now is that with 5G and the slicing and all the cool stuff that we can do with it, the world is going to change in even more dramatic ways. So we'll be asking, when was the last time that you had a physical driver that was driving your taxi? When was the last time that you were on an airplane and there was actually, people that were unloading the plane and driving the plane? The world will move towards this because now with the ultra reliable connectivity that we have with 5G, these things will happen. Not overnight, but we will move in dramatic ways that we haven't seen before.
And that does, Dennis, require a huge amount of collaboration across industries, doesn't it?
That's right. Yes, correct. So that's the reason why, as I was saying, right, while Singtel has been operating for 140 years, and the last 30 years we've been working very closely with Ericsson, and to be where we are today, able to run for 140 years, supporting our consumer, supporting our enterprise businesses, we can't do it alone. Collaboration is extremely important. As we move into the new world of 5G, we are looking at smart nation. We are looking at smart logistics, smart healthcare, and all these different industries. We are no expert in all these industries. And all these industries, all of them have their own, what we call the clear vertical experts. So I think together with Ericsson's and to all the other partners in the region or in the in different industries, we work closely with them to identify what works for the industry. What is the pain point for industries? And how, the limitless connectivities, the MEC, the cloud, how can it actually propel the industry to the next level? And all these are very important. We call it the industrial engagement, network. How do we actually bring about the ecosystem to make it work? For example, we can talk about, minings. You can talk about minings. But if you do not understand what is the intricate part of the mining, you will never come up with a solution to do that. Like, for example, we are talking about, advanced manufacturing. They are talking about machines. They are doing, thousands of what we call activities, in a split second. We won't be able to identify what is needed unless we work with the expert in the area. So I think in that case itself, while especially in Singapore, we are such a diverse, kind of like country, with different industry, we really need to work collaboratively with all the partners, the ecosystem, what we call what we call the stakeholders, to make sure that we can work together and to deliver a solution. So even if we look at working with the government sector, we're looking at the the test bed that we have, we bring about a lot of ecosystem and we collaborate together. And in this sense, not just the enablement part, it's the application part, the system integration part, and also the maintenance part. And how do we continue to grow the business? So if you ask me, collaboration is extremely important. And that's probably one leaf that we actually take out from the IoT kind of like experience. IoT has been thought to be the next down of technology. About 10 years ago, we were talking about by 2020, we could have 1 billion connectivities together, but it didn't really happen. We believe that, if we put a little bit more emphasis in the ecosystem and the verticals and being a little bit more what we call focus on the collaboration, we won't be where we are today. So we need to learn from that. And for 5G, for the future G, we just got to make sure that we are able to collaborate together, and that's I think is important for me.
I think Singtel, you're doing a great.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think Singtel is doing a great job there. With the test bed that you mentioned, Dennis. The Singtel garage. Getting all of these ecosystem partners together to try things out, because the first movers, will create the advantage here. And the first movers is not an easy change, because it's more than a technology step. It's also a business transformation. So to successfully enable this type of innovation, both operators as well as enterprise need to spend time in trying to get this ecosystem to work.
Well, on that point, Ludwig, Eric Blivett on LinkedIn has a question. There are two types of decision makers for 5G adoption in enterprise. So in many ways, this is about a collaboration, not just between industries and between partners, but even within organizations, isn't it? IT managers and OT managers are these two types of decision makers. How do you manage? This is a great question. How do you manage to convince the OT managers that 5G is important for innovation within enterprise? Ludwig.
I love that.
Oh, wait a second. Hold on a second, Dennis.
Yeah.
You're passionate about this. I can see.
You want to jump on that right away?
Go for it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why when about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when I took up this role, I was asked to kind of take on the 5G product role. And I was asking myself, 5G itself is a technology. It drives an enterprise outcome. And for the enterprise outcome, there must be a certain returns for the enterprise. It's not just about innovation. It's really about the sustainability and the ability to continue to grow the enterprise, and also the ease of operation. Which is the part the OT part I'm talking about, that I'm very intrigued about. So if, let's say, for example, if we want to apply a technology today in today's world, you will realize that we need to put in not just the network part of things, not just the connectivity part of things. We need to take care of the VMs. We need to take care of the cloud part of things. We need to take care of the edge part of things. We need to take care about security. We need to take care about operations. We need to take care of assurance. All right. Today, if you have a CCTV camera in a factory, talking about what we call using it as a defect, let's say a defect, what we call identification for a chip or a product. This needs bandwidth. They needs to be continuously running in a very good performance manner. But what happens is when you want to put all these things together, you realize that OT guys or even the guy who put up the things, I need to talk to the network people. I need to talk to the infra people. I need to talk to the operational people. I need to talk to the communication or the data analysts. So what happened is that you will realize that they need to talk to multiple parties. And that's the reason why for us in Singtel, when we decided when we want to build this 5G, I said that how can we solve this? And that's the reason why we built a platform, the orchestration platform. We call it the Paragon, whereby it combined the networks, the cloud, the MEC, and operation together. So in today, one of our customers was saying that I would like to have my camera in the daytime, using it as a defect, kind of identifier, defect, kind of looking at defects. And the daytime, when I was working, I want to use the camera as looking at the defect. But at nighttime, when the factory is down, I want to use it as a security camera. It can be done now because we built the platform to do that. And for the OT people, they're saying that, okay, if I'm running this camera in the daytime, what if too many people is using this network and my camera, vision is no longer clear because the bandwidth is limited? And that's where we build this orchestration platform, and we put in what we call the rules. As long as the camera is not having the kind of connectivity is needed, it actually called the network and said, please create a new slice for me. Please put me on the new slice so that my impact, my backhaul or my bandwidth is back to its normal. So it automatically create a new kind of like green lane for you, and then you can move on to the green lane. So this actually becomes a very important, what we call a platform for us. You no longer need to be a monolithic or a manual kind of like monitoring the network and say that, look, OT is 5G going to help you manage it. Instead, we are creating an orchestration platform to make it automated, to put a threshold, to help you, to put rules, and to make sure that your network's always being assured of a good performance. And that's the reason why I think that 5G is so important, because 5G, the basis of 5G is 100% software defined and is actually cloud-based. So it actually make it all this orchestration possible. And that's where I think is really the beauty of 5G, and that's where I will use to kind of like convince the OT managers to say, we can do it.
You've convinced me. That is for sure, Dennis. Thank you so much. I want to move into thinking about the future, and not just the implementation right now, but thinking about a very critical issue for everybody, and that is sustainability. How can limitless connectivity empower sustainable businesses?
Well, I think the example that I gave earlier on just what we're doing here is providing a great possibility for sustainability. We're in 3 different parts of the world, the 3 of us here, and so is everyone that's dialing in on this. And we're not traveling anywhere, right? We're sitting in our homes. So and when you extrapolate that to the amount of work that we can do remotely, is just tremendous. But it will really go beyond there, because with 5G we also enable the possibility to move so much people out from work that is needing people, because we have a completely different reliability. The connection that we have here today doesn't need to be super reliable. If I get switched off, and then I'll be able to redial and come back again. But that is not okay if it is a healthcare type of application, some remote surgery, or something that's more critical in terms of transport industry, and that is what 5G can enable. So from a sustainability point of view, we can now choose with digital much more where are the use cases where we do need to move somewhere, and where is it that we don't need. And in fact, I'll just share some statistic that's really interesting, and that is that if you take the ICT industry that all of us are in, it is responsible globally for about 2% of global emissions. But the enablement that we can do with the digitalization enables up to 15% improvement. So while it's only responsible for 2%, the data centers and the connectivity that we have here today, we can enable 15% improvement of the global emissions. And that is big.
That is huge. Dennis, are there any examples that you can point to in Singapore and with Singtel?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, from us as an operator, and also a service provider to our enterprise, when we look at sustainability, it's actually a very important aspect of our business itself. Not just the way we operate, not just the way we use energy or, being sustainable, but it's also we need to help the enterprise to make sure that their operation are, also in the same vein, being sustainable. So, like, for example, I gave a simple example earlier that in a factory, the same camera can be used for, defect detection, but at the night it can be used for, let's say, for example, a security surveillance. So eventually, you do not have to have multiple cameras doing multiple things. You can have everything combined into one camera because you are using the compute or the application at the edge. Because of 5G low latency, you can make a what we call a simple equipment as a camera with multiple function. You do not have to have dedicated equipment for dedicated purpose anymore. Just imagine the kind of carbon footprint we can reduce with that kind of like an application that is in the cloud. So I think in essence, we look at things in this manner, right? How do we actually help to reduce the carbon footprint? Let's not make in too many devices because everything can be run through the cloud. So I think it is something that we are really passionate about, and we believe that as part of the kind of corporate citizens in Singapore and as around the world, as we run our operation, not just about us, kind of creating more, I would say that workload itself, but rather how do we actually break the energy curve and make it more efficient, and also helping the enterprise itself.
I think all of that is absolutely essential, and so many people are finally getting interested and invested in sustainable enterprise. So it is very exciting to hear from Singtel and Singapore's point of view how this is playing out. I think it's really interesting, as well as you said, Dennis, about the collaboration between enterprise and government. I'm sure that there's a lot of negotiation there when it comes to and collaboration when it comes to creating a future of sustainability. Where is all of this innovation going? If we take all of these different elements, we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about creating, shard different networks. We're talking about smart nations, Dennis. That's a provocative phrase there. Where is this all going?
Yeah, I think from at least from my perspective itself, that all this is actually we are trying to do is that to from social technology as well as kind of economical perspective, what we are trying to do is that how can we do things better and improve all our kind of like the living standards for everybody. And to me, it's really about, how can technology not just for economic purpose, but also for social purpose. So as we look at, moving forward, we are looking at how we help technology to make our life better. One example is that, having all the capabilities like 5G, limitless bandwidth. We are talking about what we call the edge cloud and the MEC and things like that. With AIs, we need to make sure that this actually benefits every one of us on the street. One example I can give is like, for example, in a hospital or even in an old age care home, how can we actually help it? We do know that during the pandemic, there was a shortage of medical professionals. We're talking about shortage of nurses. And then we have people who are, kind of like unfortunately fall into the gap. And because of this lack of care, something happens to them. So how can 5G actually help them? For example, with AI, emotion, motion detection with AI, or even at different time to just give an alert to the, caregiver that something is going to happen. This becomes a very good use case of technology in the future. As we look at it, it becomes how we do not just use technology for business, but rather how you use technology for everyday's life. How do you use technology to make everyone's life better? So that's at least one part of things that I think is very, very important moving forward. And moving forward itself, like I say, more and more of us, as what Louis has mentioned, right, will depends on all the collaboration coming together. We can do more things together. In Singapore, we are talking about sometimes we're talking about 6G, we're talking about quantum. All this will come. But to me, as of today, most importantly is that how do we make use of what is available today, not just helping the enterprise, but also helping the people. And that's I think is key.
One thing I think is a really important thing for enterprises to recognize and to really integrate is that the necessity for agility, the need to shift and change, and with the ebbs and the flows of technology. When we throw things out into the general public, some people will embrace the technology and some people will reject it. We've seen this certainly during the pandemic, where we've really found our edges with what technology, what we as people are comfortable with technology doing in our lives. And I'm wondering if either of you have any practical sort of systemic, as it were, examples for within enterprises, so that enterprises can think about the processes that they need to implement or the systems that they need to implement as they move forward into a much more agile and digital digital way of being. Dennis, do you have any examples of something that works within Singtel where you find that you push up against a kind of a human resistance, and so you have to pivot? Or Ludwig, perhaps you have something at Ericsson.
Yeah, I can jump in. You know, we work a lot with digital twins. This is a concept that is happening much more in industries today. So creating a digital replica of the physical assets and digital twins, you know, they let manufacturers streamline the production without physically changing anything. So it's effectively, you know, creating a lot of efficiency for industries, and that is, I would say, okay from an industry point of view. But I think where maybe we will struggle a little bit more is just taking the physical out of everything. We won't want to do that. Some I'll give a bit of an extreme example. So we also have something, a sort of digital twin, which is holographic calling that we're showcasing from Ericsson, and that's effectively a digital twin of a person that you're speaking to, but it's in a 3D. So it's actually a 3D version of the person that you're speaking to. And at least for myself, I would say that it's not as good as the real thing. You know, that's for sure. So we will not be able to take everything out of that. You know, there is an element of that. And it will be the same for enterprises as well, because as much as we try to create these digital replicas of everything, it will never be as exact as the real thing. So I think we reached some limits there. It helps. It reduces the production time, but it will not take away the real thing.
Yeah, I think I would probably look at it in another perspective, right? Don't mind me, Alex. I'd say that in a certain aspect of things, as we go and more to digital, we're talking about automation. I think one of the things that people feel, not just enterprise, but actually the staff will feel, is really about that. You know, if you automate all these things, that's what's going to happen to my job. If you're going to automate all these things, well, you can get the kind of efficiency, but what happened to the human touch? So I think one of the things that we really need to be very careful about is that continuously, as we pursue the technology advancement and the transformation, we need to actually have another stream of education, educating the people. How do we upgrade them to think differently? How do we upgrade them to do things differently, to change the way they are doing their job? You know, it could be what we call probably a repetitive job that they are doing. They move it to the next level instead of like their job being replaced by AI. Now, could we teach them how to actually teach the AI to work? So I think it's really a lot about education as well, and to many of our enterprises as well. I would say that just being a little bit more provocative here, while we say that, all the enterprises and everything, we say that we're going to have a platform, the enterprise is going to self-serve, they're going to be automated, they're going to be happy. But if you talk to some of the enterprises, they will say that, no, I just still want to have a account manager that can pick up the phone and call and say, I want this, and this, can you please do it for me? So again, it's going to be a kind of like a contradicting, but I think that things is going to be that. So we need to find a midpoint. How do we continue to maintain the physical touch, the physical relationship, and then at the same time we are able to continue the kind of like the technology or rather the economic advancement for every one of us. I think I don't have the solution, but I think it's something that we got to be acutely aware of.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dennis, and to Ludwig and everybody who helped to steer our conversation by sending in a question. I'm so sad to leave this right now because I think we're getting started with some really meaty thoughts. If you have enjoyed this broadcast, please do keep commenting and sharing. Connectivity is so rapidly becoming a part of human life that sometimes it feels like we've barely got time to register the next innovation before we take it for granted. And that is why it is so fascinating listening to the experts like Dennis and to Ludwig, because it helps us to understand all the changes that are taking place all around us, nowhere more so than in the enterprise world. We will continue that exploration when we meet next. Please join us on the 8th of September when we will take a close look at the true value of limitless connectivity. I am looking forward to it. Thank you for joining.